It's really getting bad now. I hope it passes quickly. It did not pass quickly. For an hour, the hail rained on the house, the garden, the hillside, the cornfield, on the whole valley. For an hour, these hailstones kept raining everywhere on the house, in the garden, the hillside, the cornfield, and the whole valley. The field was white because of that frozen pearls. The whole field appeared to be white instead of green, with as if covered with salt, and salt symbolizes ruin. Not a leaf remained on the trees. The corn was totally destroyed. The flowers were gone from the plants. Lencho's soul was filled with sadness. When the storm had passed, he stood in the middle of the field and said to his sons, "A plague of Lucas would have left more than this. The hail has left nothing." Now, if there is a plague of Lucas, Lucas is a kind of a creature. This is caused by locusts, wood, locust insects that fly in the big swarms, groups, and destroy crops. If that had come, then that would have left something at least. But the hail has left nothing. This year we will have no corn, he told his sons. That night was a sorrowful one because they knew that that the crop was destroyed. Now they were not going to get any, and they started worrying about the how they would pass the year. That night was a sorrowful one. All our work for nothing. There is well, we will all go hungry this year. That was the conclusion. Now some questions are put over here. What did Lancho hope for? Second question is, why did Lancho say the raindrops were like new coins? Because that rain would bring good harvest, and the harvest would earn him coins. How did the rain change? It suddenly changed and strong winds started blowing. And what happened to Lencho's fields? The crop was totally destroyed. It seemed that the whole field had become white, and it seemed as if it was all salt everywhere. What were Lencho's feelings when the hail stopped? We just read that this year we are not going to get any corn, and we might die hungry, or say we might starve. In the hearts of all who lived in that solitary house. Solitary house means lonely house, because as mentioned earlier, there was on the hill. So, but in the hearts of all who lived in the solitary house in the middle of the valley, there was a single hope: help from God. That is something that they expected. Don't be so upset. Even though this seems like a total loss, remember, no one dies of hunger. That's what they say. No one dies of hunger. But the circumstances were such, the crop was ruined, there was not going to be any harvest. So naturally, a person would think that it's going to be a very tough year. They might starve all through the night, only of his one hope: the help of God. God, whose eyes he has been instructed, Lancho had been taught, see everything, even what is deep in one's conscience. God can see everything. Whatever your conscience is saying, that also God will come to know. He had been instructed in that way. Lancho was an ox of a man, working like an animal in the fields, but still he knew how to write. Now that is contrasting. He writes, but that is in contrast to what? That he was basically a laborer, working like an ox on the field. And yet he knew how to write. The following Sunday, at daybreak, he began to write a letter, which he himself would carry to town and place in the mail. On Sunday, he started writing a letter. He had decided that he would go and post the letter on Sunday. He himself would do that. It was nothing less than a letter to God. Nothing less or more, but he had straight away written a letter to God. God, he wrote, if you don't help me, my family and I will go hungry this year. I need 100 pesos in order to and to leave until the crop comes because the hailstorm. And then we know what he had written. It continued in that way. He expressed himself very clearly to God that my family and I will go hungry this year because of the hailstorms and the crop had been destroyed and there was no harvest. He continued. He wrote to God on the envelope, put the letter inside, and still troubled, went to town. He posted the letter. And to whom did he address the letter? On the envelope, he wrote to God. At the post office, he placed a stamp on the letter and dropped it into the mailbox. One of the employees in the post office, who was a postman and also helped at the post office, went to his boss, laughing, and showed him the letter to God. When the letter, this employee, he picked up the letter and he showed it to his boss. And he was laughing heartily because it was something very unusual. No one had seen anybody writing a letter to God. Never in as a postman had he known that address, the address of God. The postmaster, fat and amiable, friendly and pleasant, amiable means pleasant fellow, also broke out laughing. But almost immediately he turned serious. First he also started laughing that, oh, letter to God, how strange, how surprising and how funny. But the very next moment he turned serious and tapping the letter on his desk commented, what faith! I wish I had the faith of the man who wrote this letter. Starting up a correspondence with God? This was something unbelievable for him. He could never have such a faith. And he was impressed by this man who had written the letter to God. So, in order not to shake the writer's